presented on our last immersion, and I was after somebody that could help me with some of our sales pages. And immediately he did 2 sales pages for us, and they were probably the best 2 landing pages I've ever read. It completely changed the value proposition. What he did with words was incredibly powerful. So much so that I've now hired him to revamp our entire website that he's now building out. And not only is he an absolute wizard, a gentleman, but he is also just one of the most giving, nicest people that you'll meet. And he's jumped on here early because he was, being flexible and everything else. And he's just going to deliver so much value for you guys in terms of your copywriting, in terms of the language we use for our landing pages, our ads, our articles, our content and everything else. So we're very, very fortunate to have Daniel Lamb from Holland Creative come up and speak next. So welcome, mate. Great to have you on.
Hey, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Great to be with y'all today. Good morning to you and good evening to us here in the States. I'm really excited, and I'm glad that you guys did a little bit of banter before you had me on, because following Bedros is quite a challenge, and I didn't realize that was going to happen. So I've got to bring it, but I'm excited because I have a lot to share tonight, and so I'm going to do my best to deliver on that promise. And so we're definitely going to be talking about copywriting. We're going to be talking about funnels, and I think are going to have a really good time with it. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's go in. So you've got capacity if you want to share your screen.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can everybody see my screen? A quick thumbs up if you see the little logo and the blue. All right, perfect. Awesome. Fantastic. All right. I'm not going to share that for too long here. Let me just go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself. Who am I? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm Batman. This is me as a kid, and there's a reason for this. So I grew up on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere in Georgia, here in the United States, in the South. And I remember one morning I woke up and I walked out my front door, and immediately getting off the step, I was frozen in a flash of white hot fear, completely terrified and mortified. I was barefooted and I was walking out off of my porch, and I heard this unmistakable sound. It was a rattling sound, and I froze. So one of the biggest problems we had on our property here was venomous snakes, specifically rattlesnakes. I understand that there are quite a few dangerous creatures in Australia, right? So you get it. So here I am. I'm standing on this porch. I'm frozen. I'm flooded with adrenaline. I'm like 10 years old. And I look down, and several inches to the right of my bare-rolled 10 feet was this freaking giant diamondback rattlesnake, coiled up and ready to strike me. And these snakes don't mess around. So in that moment, my training kicked in. So what happened was I probably read 10, 15 books on venomous snakes and dangerous creatures by this age. Being a young person, I was fascinated with danger and creatures, animals. So I was able to remember all these books I read, all the things that I had learned. So I stopped, I breathed, I listened, and I backed away slowly, glacially, and got back in the house. And then when I was finally back across the threshold, I was grateful for one thing, that I had knew enough about snakes to avoid getting bitten and either getting taken to the emergency room or worse. That said, anybody here has a fear of any kind? If you do me a quick favor, drop an F in the chat box. Nice. Right. The truth is, we all have fear of some kind, whether that's of the rattlesnakes out our front door, whether that's the fear of losing our success. We all have these constraints, these fears. And in marketing, we kind of call them pain points, right? So if you're not familiar with the word pain point, it's basically something that we want to solve in our life, whether that's a problem, whether it's a fear, whether it's a challenge, whether it's a motivation. These are all different types of pain points. And so a good pain point is a lot like that rattlesnake. It's in your face. It's impossible to ignore. So when we ask the question, what kind of problem are you solving in your business? The pain point that you bring up needs to be one that really demands a solution. And so when it comes to copywriting, sometimes the challenge is, to come up with a way to say what we do, what we offer, and why we do it in a unique way. In fitness, the easy thing to say is, well, I help people get in shape. But let's look a little deeper than that answer. So challenge the question maybe 6 times deep. So why do I help people get in shape? Because they want to feel healthier. Why do they want to feel healthier? Because they want to live longer. Why do they want to live longer? So they can retire. Why do they want to retire? Because they worked so hard. So you see, the further we get down this line of thinking, the more we approach the true motivations for why people want what they want. And usually there's some sort of, mortality behind it, some sort of impetus to live and to thrive and to prolong life and to enjoy life and to feel joy, or avoid the opposite. So obviously I'm grateful for the people who wrote those books about venomous snakes. And there are people out there who are very grateful to all of you for providing a solution to their problem, whether that's, better nutrition, fat loss, bodybuilding, building a better business. And we all have these deep motivations for why we want to come to those solutions. So what I want you to do is to take 1 minute, 60 seconds, and do 2 things for me. Write down for yourself. You don't have to share this. Write down who you serve. Think of a very specific person. Like, I serve my neighbor, Jim, who owns an e-com business and sells figurines out of his house. Think of the specific problem you solve for them. I help Jim get more figurine customers through funnels. Right. So think about the person that you serve and the specific problem that you serve for them. Let's just take 1 minute to do that. I want to take a water break. So while you're thinking about this, I want you to take it one step further. Think about how this ideal client, this person that you serve, has tried to solve this problem before, maybe with little or no success. There's a reason that, they've come to you. So for example, if you're a nutrition coach, you could contrast how diets like keto might do more harm than good if they, there's the toggling onto the diet and off that could lead to regain metabolic issues. Think about what is different about your approach and how you might get them across the bridge to success through your offer. So continuing with that previous example, maybe if you're the nutrition coach, maybe the first thing that you do with your clients is that you focus on their gut health and you rehabilitate their gut biome. All right. So if you're still writing, that's okay. Feel free to keep on going with that. So congratulations. What you've done, you've identified your ideal client. You have identified the main pain point that you solve for in your business. You've identified the unique mechanism of the problem, which is the reason that they haven't had success before, and you've maybe identified the unique mechanism of the solution. What's different about you, your business? So these 4 things that we went through, the ideal client avatar, the pain point, the unique mechanism of the problem, and the unique mechanism of the solution, people are willing to pay marketers at least 4 figures to figure that out for them. So already you're already in the black on value. So do me a favor, just tell me, has this been valuable so far? If so, just type yes in the chat box. Awesome. All right. So that's great to hear. So now we're going to talk about copy. We're going to talk about funnels. Okay, that's enough from Batman. Hang on one sec. Let me get my screen back up here. All right. Well, it is glitching, so bear with me for 2 secs while I stop that. We're going to go ahead and take a little break from the slideshow, and I'm going to take you into a little bit of a little side quest here. Specifically, we are going to look at, where'd it go? Okay, here it is. All right, we're going to look at a couple of things about copywriting before we get into the nitty-gritty of funnels. All right. All right, so this, I'm going to give you guys this link so that you can check this out for yourselves. I'm going to just drop this here in the chat box. You can bookmark it. It's not going anywhere. This is just a checklist of things you can do with your copy. So whenever we're writing, whether it's a Facebook post or a lead magnet or a website or a funnel or a sales page, the main thing that, whoops, I sent this to Dan only, so let me make sure I send this to everybody. The main thing that you want to focus on first is a really good headline, because the headline's job is to get your audience to stay, to interrupt them, to get them to stay long enough to read the next line. And so an action-oriented headline means something that starts with a verb, starts with action. So like, you know, do you want to do something? Do you need something? Are you ready to do something? Find a new way to do something. So really there's a lot of mechanisms behind good headlines. There are motivational headlines. There are fear-based headlines. So there's, you know, the future promise of something that we could get. It's a gain. There's the fear of loss. So not losing something you don't want. Oops, I'm seeing that we're not getting access to this. Let me make sure that this is shareable. So hang with me for 2 secs. Oh, there we go. It's not published to the web. Well, there we go. That is my bad. Thanks for calling that out. Try this link. All right. So once we know that we have a decent headline, it should function in one of those ways: to fascinate, to motivate, to, you know, set a fire under someone who might have fear. Basically to capture their attention, to keep them curious long enough to read the next line, which sort of brings us into the unique mechanism. And when it comes to unique mechanisms, what we really mean is telling the story of why the challenge is real and why your solution is one that they should check out. And so to that point, your copy needs to speak directly to your avatar or your persona. And the way to do that is to really write it to one person. So think about your best client and write it to them. Or think about it, the person that you know you could help the most, and write it to them. And put a name on it, put a face on it. Really think about it as a one-to-one communication. So the next thing is future pacing and fascination bullets. So I'm sure that you have seen copywriting before where, there are these bullet points with dot, 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 like imagine if dot, 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 things were different and things were awesome. And so these types of bullet points reveal something about what they're going to get out of the training or out of the offer. And to that point, you're emphasizing the benefits. So it's really about selling the transformation of why they're going to work with you. Like no one wants to hear about how many different workouts they're going to get, or like how many meal plans or, recipes are in the book, but the transformation, the benefit, is really a big part of using effective psychology in your copywriting. Social proof, people want to know that others have found success. If you're talking about a sales page, these last 4 bullets are mostly geared to sales pages, but a good rule of thumb is 10x the price. So if you have a $100 offer, imagine selling $1,000 worth of value for the $100 offer. Value stacks and upsells. This is pretty straightforward. This is kind of reiterating if there are freebies, bonuses, added value that you're putting into your offer. You're reminding people that, for the low price of, $99.97, you're going to get this, you're going to get that, all the things that are basically added value stacked up to make the purchase, make the conversion a no-brainer. When it comes to funnels and selling things, especially online, the upsells, like one-time offers, cross sells, side sells, these sorts of things, especially when you're trying to scale an offer on traffic, cold traffic through Facebook ads and Google ads, the upsells and the downsells, anyway, the back end of the funnel is really important because you're paying all this money to acquire traffic. If you have an offer that's converting, and this is an opportunity to basically create an exponent of return. So creating things that relate to the offer and selling those as, as a, what's the word I'm looking for here? As an additional thing. Risk reversal and guarantees. I think this one kind of speaks for itself, but offering a no questions asked guarantee or a 30-day money back guarantee, or, even including something like, try it for the first month for X number of dollars, like Bedros was talking about, or the first week. We're taking all the risk here. You're going to learn so much at the outset that, if you cancel, we've basically given away the farm. So those kinds of claims work really well. And then if the page uses scarcity, urgency, or FOMO, the fear of missing out, make sure that it's honest and earned. I read an article a couple of days ago about a software company that was doing this, where they said, we've only got 2 more slots. And, somebody called BS on that because it's clearly software. There aren't slots. It's not a thing. And so if you do have an urgency offer, make sure that it's congruent with the values. So maybe it's, you can only get, you only have bandwidth to take on 2 more private clients. So then, yes, you can say, the spots are going fast. We've only got 2 more slots, that kind of thing. I'm not going to go through the whole presentation on the swipes and the teardowns, because this was actually an add-on from another presentation. I just wanted to include this, go through some of the basic copywriting stuff that will help you digest some of the rest of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight around building out your funnel, building out your acquisition, your list building, your bait. I'm going to make sure that you guys all have access to this so you can go through the other things about the design, about offer structures. There's some swipes in here you can check out of good sales pages and bad sales pages. The first 2, just so you know, the first page on Google Business Coaching ad and the Tony Robbins page aren't very particularly persuasive, but the last 4, Dean Graziosi, Frank Kern, Craig Ballantyne, and Russell Brunson, they have some really great sales copy and structures that you can analyze and dive into. There's also some really good copywriters to check out if you want to learn more about what others are doing in the space, and some books and resources here that I would recommend if you have the hunger to dive deeper into some of these topics. That said, I'm going to jump back into the deck and sort of give you some more tactical advice on what to do with this information. All right, bear with me for 2 secs. For some reason, the presentation is being wonky, so I'm going to have to reset it or do something different. So I appreciate your patience. All right, I think we're good to go. Go ahead and reshare. Awesome. All right. All right, so now that we've covered some of the baseline things that we want to talk about with respect to copywriting, with respect to understanding who you're speaking to, now we kind of want to jump into some of the more tactical things that you can do to put some bait in the water and start seeing some results. All right, so we're going to put the fun in funnels, but first I want to ask you guys one more question. So again, if you wouldn't mind in the chat, just letting me know, are you familiar with the phrase, if you build it, they will come? We're talking about the Field of Dreams movie. So, okay, you get it? Awesome. Right. So when it comes to funnels, all right, I'm glad that somebody left at this. When it comes to funnels, you know, the idea, we might get the idea as, okay, I really need to do this thing in my business. I need to build a funnel. I need to have an email sequence. I need all these things. But just because you build a funnel doesn't mean that the customers are going to come running. You really are still going to have to put it out there, either through organic, like posting, you know, linking to it, putting it in people's face, or buying traffic. So a fire without any wood is not going to burn for very long. So keep that in mind as we go through these techniques on how to create a funnel, that you're still going to have to do the work of, you know, creating content and pushing people to your funnels and giving people a reason to check it out. So we'll talk a little bit about that on the back end, but for now, I want to dive into the kind of stuff that you can do really in an afternoon even to get from zero to having a working funnel. All right. So the things that you're going to need at a high level to make a funnel work are a landing page, a lead magnet, an email service provider, and some decent copy. One of the tools that we're going to talk about is ConvertKit. It's about $30 a month US. I don't have an affiliate relationship with them, so I really have no, what's the word? No stake in telling you about these guys. Really, any software will work. You can do it with whatever you have. That's probably the best software to use. So a lead magnet and a landing page, an email service provider, and some pretty decent copy. So we've already talked about the copy in the other part. So we're going to go ahead and skip over that. So when it comes to a lead magnet, remember when we talked about the pain point that you solve in your business, the thing that you do differently, the thing that you solve for people, create some content around that. This could be a video. You could, you know, film a quick video on your phone, put it up on YouTube, and put a link in it in a Facebook post, embed it on a landing page, you could create a short PDF. I'm going to give you guys a PDF of all the checklists and stuff that you need later. And you'll get a chance to see what a basic little baby funnel looks like through that. You could also, if you have something bigger like an ebook or a course or a sequence of videos, you could use any of these things to create your basic lead magnet, your basic hook in the water, right? Right. So once you have the thing that you're going to give away for free, something of value, one of the things that to keep in mind when you're creating the freebie is that you don't really have to hold back too much on the information you're going to give people, because people usually will download this thing as just to see what you have to offer. They probably won't consume it in great detail. They just want to make a connection. And so being generous with information is actually to your favor, because it will help build trust and confidence in you when they can see that, okay, you put together a fairly meaty video or a fairly meaty PDF that has a lot of good information in it. It still doesn't mean that you've given away the farm. It still doesn't mean that you've done too much, right? So don't be afraid to go a little deeper than just a basic checklist. Right. So once you have that, then the next step is to build out a page, a conversion page, right? So the page should have a form. It should have a description of the offer. It should give people an easy way to opt in, and it should be simple. So to that end, I can give you guys a link to the checklist in the video that follow up with this talk tonight, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. In full transparency, I'm going to show you exactly what this is, what I'm doing, and hopefully you can go back and replicate it for yourself. I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like. All right, so here it is. This is a lead magnet landing page. The offer is a step-by-step funnel guidebook. There's some copy that gives you an expectation that building a funnel, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to cost you $1,000. You can learn the exact steps you can take using simple software for less than the cost of date night. We ask for the email address. When you put the email address in, you'll get a link. You get an email. It lets you download the PDF. It gives you a link to a video that walks you through how to set up the software. Very simple, very clear. All right. So it has disappeared yet again. Are you guys seeing the deck again? All right, awesome, cool. All right, so once you have your basic landing page, your basic offer created, the next thing you want to do is set up an email sequence. The video that's attached to the checklist that you'll get after this, it'll walk you through how to write these emails and actually how to implement them in your software. But basically what you want to do is follow a process to indoctrinate people. When I say indoctrinate, I mean just getting to know you. So the purpose of the follow-up emails isn't to hard sell them on buying your coaching offer right away. It's to introduce you, to create some emotional connection, all right, Kurt and Sam asked a question about long copy versus short copy. If you're giving away something for free, I don't think you really need a super long copy. If you're selling things, then yes, you definitely want longer copy. And so we can talk a little bit more about that in just a sec. Yeah, so in terms of the emails that you want to attach to your funnel, the email should create rapport. They should introduce you as the expert, and it's your opportunity to speak like yourself, to be a human being who has expertise in a subject. And so whether you do 5 emails, 10 emails, the length of the sequence is less important than the value in the story. And so really it's an opportunity to tell your story, to tell your why, to make that emotional connection with your audience so that they can understand where you're coming from, and eventually, yes, to understand what you're offering and whether you're a good fit for them. And so then once you have all those things put together, really it's pretty simple. You just start creating content on social media or in your emails and sending people a link to your freebie. And when they opt in, they'll get your sequence and they'll get to know you for as long as they stay in your funnel. At the end of the sequence, usually what happens is you just assign them a tag and they enter into your normal email marketing. So whether you send out an email a day or an email a week, these people, once they have gone through your initial 5 to 7 emails, will just become part of the audience. And you can track their engagements. You can track their, all those things. Right. So, whoops. So yeah, so once you have your funnel set up, then it really the question becomes like, what do you do with it? And so, if you're just starting out or you don't have a lot of budget to put behind paid ads, there's a lot you can do organically. You can do Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives. You can teach to people and follow up and give them something for free. You can put it in your Linktree or your Instagram account where you have info, for people to check out your offers. You can put it in your posts. You can add it to your bio. There's a lot of places you can stick these things so that people can go back and find what you have to offer and find value from you. So that is pretty much the long and short of how to start with copy and start with funnels. I noticed that there's a question about long versus short copy, but let's go ahead and open it up for questions in general, because I know that there's a lot of layers to all this. And so it might be like drinking from a fire hose at first with all this information.
So Dan, there's been some really cool insights in terms of the writing aspect of it. And thank you for the resources. I've shared it for the Game Changers in the messages for them as well.
Awesome.
My question is, so, with that free, hang on, Bubba, with that free resource, you're doing... Yeah, that's fascinating. Hang on 1 second. With that free resource, you've got a short copy. If you had something like a low barrier offer, that would be slightly more. And then for the big offers, like I used to see these huge sales pages, right, to sell these offers, and it would just be so much information. And you inevitably just end up scrolling through it in order to just finally make the buy. Is that the same principle in terms of you have to be willing to give a lot, and people won't even necessarily read it, but it helps build that trust. Like Bedros talked about, he has to work with someone for 3 years in order for him to trust them to even start doing business with them. So is that where the long copy has its advantage? It's a sign of trust to your market?
So that's a really good question. There are differing theories on copy length and what's appropriate for what scenario. I think one of the best versions of this that I've heard is think about your sales calls. How long does it take you to get through a sales process? You know, if you're going to sell someone, you know, on attending your $97 workshop or masterclass, it's probably a 10 or 20 minute chat, maybe less. But if you're trying to get them to join your $10,000 mastermind, you might have an hour-long one-on-one call. Or, you know, you might have an even longer step where they attend an event and then they get to know you through your membership. And then eventually, you know, a year or two later, they're ready to take that step and buy into something at a really high ticket. So I say that because one of the copywriters that I have sort of mentored with and followed was suggesting that, you know, and this is not by any means a rule of edict where you have to do this, but think about 100 words per minute of conversation. So if it's a 10-minute chat, you're thinking about 1,000 words. If it's a half an hour chat, you're thinking 3,000 words. If this is a 2-hour chat, that's 120 minutes. That's 12,000 words. Right. Perfect. Does that make sense, Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
there's and before we move on, there's actually another thing to discuss around copy length and the length of a landing page or a sales page. There are several different models of readership and learning, and so there are people who are kind of like hot reactors who they jump on a page, they want to take action, they don't want to spend any time there because they know that they're ready to buy. And so you have the strong headline, you have the form above the fold, you know, at the top of the page, you have the offer really clearly defined so that, you know, when you load the page, you actually don't need to scroll to understand why you're there, what it does, right? It's just like, boom, here's this offer. So for those people, you know, that's really all you need. But they are just one segment, right? Mm. And so we have another segment of people who are skimmers and scanners. And so a lot of times with long form, you'll notice that there's big fonts, small fonts, bold, underline, italics, all these sort of things that are basically attention grabbers to keep people kind of thinking like resistance as you fall down a hill, right? There's these things that like sort of keep you from falling too fast, right? So you have these things that block people and grab their attention as they scroll quickly through.
Yeah. So in terms of that, just so I'm clear, like I'm a bit of a skimmer, right? So I'll skim through the page and then I'll see like a big bold red headline and be like, oh, hang on, what's that point? Then
exactly. And I'm the same way as a reader. I'm like, I know why I'm on the page. I already probably know if I'm going to buy or not, but I do like to skim and scan and see what the big things are. And lastly, there are your meticulous people who can't decide on what bar of soap to buy, and they're going to read every freaking word on the page, and they're just like that. You know, these are your auditors, the people who will you know dig into every word you have to say. And so this is just another case of, you know, we're all different. We're all unique. The way we make decisions, the way we're motivated. And so, you know, having a sales page that sort of embraces these different user experiences at the same time, you know, through things like immediacy with your stuff at the top of the page, with scannability for your skimmers and scanners, and with great amounts of detail for your conscientious buyers. You know, that's where the things like the value stacks and the reminders and you're getting this and you're getting that, those things all come in handy when you're trying to basically convince somebody through words without having a conversation in person.
So you're essentially looking at your ideal client, and then you're looking at how that ideal client may consume the information. And so your copy should basically cater to all of them, because
exactly. It's kind of like psychographics. If you're familiar with demographics, it's like things like age, race, gender, socioeconomics, location. Psychographics are attitude based and proclivity based. So like, say, you know, there's two Daniels on this call, Dan Henderson and Dan Lamb. we both are white males, we are of a certain age, but we may have very different political views. We may have very different, we might like very different foods. We might act differently under stress. So we have these like psychological profiles that are quite different, even though like maybe on the surface, there's a lot of similarities. And so with psychographics, you basically want to be able to appeal to your demographics through a broad scope of ways. So your ideal client avatar might have things like demographics, like, our business caters to 40-year-old females who have 2.5 children and who want to lose weight for this reason and that reason. But, they might be very different politically, religiously, spiritually, socially. Some may be really into, I don't know, like certain hobbies. Some might be, so really like think about it that way. Like your ideal avatar is broader than you think it is in certain ways. And so having these different types of ways to engage with the content gives people across the spectrum a little bit more, it allows your stuff basically to meet them where they're at and not force them to be somebody else. Right. So like you wouldn't want to do an audiobook for the deaf. That would be cruel and unusual punishment.
Could be an untapped market. Will asked, is there an optimum amount on generally speaking, is there an optimum amount of emails to a funnel?
I would say that the question should be, is there an optimum amount of emails to your funnel? Because it depends. And the only way to know for sure is to test it out. I like to start out with 5 to 7 emails and see how that goes. And it also depends on the type of funnel. So if this is an evergreen funnel and like getting to know you thing for basically, your everyday buyers, then yeah, that's probably fine. But if you're doing a product launch, like the Jeff Walker style thing, where there's a time bound aspect to it, where there's an open cart and a closed cart, and there's only a week for people to come in and buy, you're probably going to want more emails. That's where, you have sort of like a mathematical curve upward toward the end of the funnel, where you're sending more and more emails and creating sort of that feeding frenzy, because, studies have shown, and the data is there, that people basically, buy all toward the end of the window, the time window. And so, putting as many hooks in the water when the fish are there. Yeah. So I think, for product launch, or course launch funnels, more email is probably more effective. For, your everyday campaigns where you're just, trying to attract people, generally speaking, that tactic would probably piss people off and scare them away, because then you seem creepy and like really leery, like hanging out, like, sup, hey, I'm at your house, it's 2 a.m. What's up? How's it going?
Yeah, Daniel Henderson does that to me. It's weird. I want to ask these next 2 questions as a combined thing. And Hoff, you're focusing on your uniqueness is what attracts people to you, mate. Just like, my weirdness attracts people to me in some weird way. But Hoff asked about how many emails would you need to introduce yourself? And off the back of that, I want to go to Kurt and Sam's question, because it feeds into helping to build that relationship. So if we're talking about sending out regular emails rather for, just to nurture our audience, yeah. I think this factors across to social media posting as well, and any other copy. What kind of, I guess, framework would you say helps people build that relationship? Because people will read emails and they won't necessarily ever respond to you, but they will come back to you months and years later and go, that email that you wrote, blah, 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 it really resonated with me. So
sure. That's a great question. Again, this is a situation where different experts will tell you different things. And so take everything with a grain of salt, eat the meat and leave the bones, as my friend Joe says. So a lot of people have been mentioning Craig Ballantyne tonight. Craig pretty much posts something every day. But Craig's approach is to theme your days. So you have like Motivation Monday, Testimonial Tuesday, Wisdom Wednesday, you know, Throwback Thursday, Gratitude Friday, and Lifestyle Saturday. Maybe you take Sundays off, or maybe it's Wisdom Sunday. So you basically have a reason for posting a certain type of content when you post it. So regardless of how often you choose to put content out there, I think that consistency trumps frequency, right? So like think about a good example would be, there's a guy who is in the software business and he does SEO. His name's Rand, and he was the founder of Moz. And so his big thing was Whiteboard Friday. And so he didn't do a ton of like email, but he did Twitter and he did Whiteboard Friday. And Whiteboard Friday was a teaching moment, right? Every week where he would hop on and do a live stream and post it on YouTube. And so, you know, I think that we all kind of have to decide for ourselves what our flavor and style is. For some people, the daily movies of life, like Craig, will work. For some of us, like for me, there's nothing that you could probably tell me to get me to post like 3 times a day on Instagram. I mean, I like going on there, but you know, for my business, I don't really know too many copywriters who are converting cold or warm people off Instagram. A lot of our business like thrives on referrals because it's, you know, when you think about it, it's a trust factor, you know, because what we generally serve people with and sell is a little bit higher ticket, and there's an expectation of expertise, and there's an expectation of being able to deliver results. And so in fitness, you know, video content on Instagram works really well. Like my client, Jeff, he's an online fitness coach. I do email marketing for him. The emails don't convert nearly as well as his Instagram does. His Instagram is like a gold mine because he's a bodybuilder. He looks great without a shirt on. You know, he has very specific opinions. And like, so this all feeds into the ethos of what people are looking for in a coach. And so thinking about that, I would say that it really depends on like your personality, your offer, where your people are hanging out, what they are interested in consuming. But I will say that from what I've seen in terms of gaining trust from people and gaining familiarity with people, Instagram seems like a really good place to hang out if you're in the fitness biz.
And so let's talk about consistency in terms of, let's say, a sales cycle. You know, if you're keeping a theme of your emails, how often do you think you would cycle through to that sales portion of it?
80-20 rule. 20% of your emails are going to do 80% of the sales. And to that effect, let's say you send out 5 emails a month or 5 emails a week. Regardless of that frequency, you probably want to have 4 regular, you know, educational or, you know, personality driven emails to your 1 offer email. Now you can always have a PS in your email, like, hey, just in case you're looking for this thing, here it is. But in terms of the way you angle it and the way you position yourself, I would say, you know, probably, you know, 20% of the time you should be selling, 80% of the time you should be engaging in your story, engaging in education. And, you know, to that point that someone asked around, I think I'm boring. I don't have a lot of great stories. I think you probably have more stories than you believe you do. I think of myself as a relatively boring person, but I was able to dig up that weird picture of me in the Batman costume from when I was a kid and tell you guys a story about almost getting killed by a rattlesnake. And in my mind, it's really not that interesting because it happened to me. And I'm just like, oh yeah, you know, snakes, no big deal. But, you know, to somebody who doesn't know you, that might make a bigger impact. I don't know.
It's the mentality, right? Like so often people stop themselves from putting themselves out there because no one else will resonate with it.
Exactly. It's a mindset block.
Yeah.
And you know, the truth is we all have interesting stories. It just might take some work on your part to uncover that gold and polish it up and make it look like a trophy instead of this weird thing you found in the dirt.
It's interesting. Earlier this morning, we talked about aligning values, and the people that you attract to your business are going to be people that resonate with your story. Like that's a big part of it. Now,
100%.
Now, speaking of stories, I've never had this occasion, Danielle, where Dan hasn't interrupted me or cut me off unfettered. I'm a little concerned he may have had like a stroke from the stress of the morning, or possibly an aneurysm.
All right, now's the time to interrupt you. At this point right now, it seems like an opportune time. No, you're actually asking interesting questions for once, Gaz, so I'm just letting you roll with it. I'm entertained by you for once. But Daniel, if I switch gears a little bit, we've been talking a lot about long versus short copy, what type of emails, personality. I want to switch a little bit more to the data side of things. So we've talked about, and the guys, just so that we're aware and clarifying, you guys are going to have a really good checklist and system on how to create your own lead magnet, landing page, and emails. All right, your own funnel per se. From a data-driven perspective, how much, how should a landing page convert for a lead magnet? Are we looking at a 10% conversion? Are we looking at a 5%? Are we looking at a 1%? Is there a range in terms of how we can objectively measure success? And then the second part of that is, for a lead magnet, how much do we want to pay for a subscriber?
That's a really good question. Right. So this kind of unpacks a couple more points. One of the things that you might consider doing with your onboarding sequence and with your lead magnet is that, I know you know this, Dan, but in Russell Brunson's methodology, there's this thing called the value ladder. And so the very first step on the ladder is a freebie. And that point on the ladder pushes people to the next point up, up the hill, like Sisyphus and his rock every day. But so the second point on the ladder is a paid offer of some kind. So if you're pushing, this is a long way around, but basically you're going to get more bang for your buck in terms of buying traffic on your freebie if you are using the funnel to push people to that next step in your ladder. So by the end of your onboarding sequence of 7 emails or so, you're offering that first step in the purchase journey. Now, in terms of conversion rates and cost per acquisition, this is going to kind of depend on where you're putting things out there. If you're buying Facebook ads or Instagram ads, somewhere in the number of click, like the cost per click will depend kind of on where you're pointing those ads. So if you're pointing them at a freebie, it shouldn't cost you more than a few bucks a click at the most to get somebody to go to that page. I mean, I would say somewhere between like $1 and $3 to get people over to your lead magnet. If the lead magnet page is converting, it could probably convert anywhere from 10 to 30% if it's doing its job. If it's bad, then, maybe less. But I think that the more that you test it and the more that you refine your approach, you're going to see better cost per acquisition and higher click-through rates and higher conversion rates. So, it might be that at the outset, you only get a 5% conversion rate, but, take those learnings and reinvest them and reapply. So for instance, if you're getting a good conversion rate, but your cost per acquisition is too high, it's probably that your targeting is too narrow. So like if you're only buying traffic in Perth, you know what I mean? Like that might be problematic. But if you're buying for the whole country, your cost your target's going to be broader and your cost is going to be a little bit lower. So I think the question that raises too is how much is that worth to you in your business? I was on a call today with some coaches of mine, and they launched an offer that was about $2,000 US. And I want to say that they made just under 50 sales. Their media cost was about $5,000. Their cost per acquisition was 151 US. I think that's pretty good considering that the offer was $2,000. However, a couple of things that brought that number down were that they sold it from within inside their membership first. And so before they started running paid traffic on their offer, they were able to get like 12 buys from inside the group. And the group, I think, had like 300 people in it or so, maybe 350. And you know, so then they invested in a copywriter and an ads manager to you know, write the ads and write the emails and buy traffic. And so, you know, the full baked in cost of both the organic and the paid washed out to about 150 per lead, no, per sale. So, but again, that's for a high LTV sale. You know, I would hope that, you know, for a freebie offer, you weren't paying more than $5 or $10 to get someone that freebie. Otherwise, it's not really sustainable unless, you know, your emails are fire and you're able to convert people into, say, a paid masterclass or a paid, you know, VIP experience or something, right? Something, or even a trial, so that you're, you know, like the thing we talked about before, which was upsells. You can look at the upsell as not a part of the landing page, but as a part of the sequence. You know, so getting people to buy into something on the back end through the coaching of the conversion through email.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. I think for the guys out there, you know, even this whole methodology is quite often we market because we market for the instant gratification and the immediate sale, where building a lead magnet is building an asset base that we then nurture over a period of time. And so we want to be doing both. And so here's the perfect opportunity. If you guys don't have it, here's your nurture-based funnel where we can build that asset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you want to take as many followers off our social onto our email and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring that up. You know, if you're not using your social to push people into your own list, then you're missing out, because, you know, when Facebook changes the algorithm or, you know, the ad price goes up, basically that audience is no longer viable. So bringing people into your own, you know, email, your own owned media is a really great way to use social.
Yeah, big time. Guys, is there any last questions for Daniel before we leave him for the evening? It's got to be about 9 o'clock at night over there, dude. So we're going to let you go to bed and retire. But is there any last questions before we do so? You've got a great copywriter, a great marketer that you've got access to. So we'd love to, you know, have any lingering questions answered before we let Daniel go. But guys, check out that resource. That's what I'd direct you to. That checklist is money in terms of writing copy, not just on the writing a landing page, but also just the user experience as well. Absolutely phenomenal. Doesn't look like there's anything else. Actually, here we go. Are you available to work with one-on-one, mate? So it looks like you've got a client. All
right. Yes, so the Hoff, yeah. Dan can give you my contact information. I'm happy to drop my email address in the chat if you'd like me to, Dan.
Yep.
If people want to reach out directly, I'm more than happy to put that in here for you. If you have any questions about, you know, setting up your funnel, you're more than welcome to just ask me questions. I'm always happy to chat. But yeah, if you have an interest in working on some copy, by all means, hit me up. The biggest sin of a copywriter, not testing the work, not doing the research. Research is probably, I'd say, 70% of the work, and the other 30% is actually writing stuff down. So yeah, if you missed something, do we talk about leveraging videos? We covered videos basically, but not in depth. So we could probably do a follow-up at some point on video, but we didn't get into it.
Yeah, awesome. We'll do that. Well, I love that. Great point to finish. Great question, Tracy. Research is 70% of the work, guys. 70% of the work. And so when I employed Dan, on our initial pages, what he did is he just audited a whole bunch of our content and people, read testimonials, had interviews with clients and everything else. It was 2 weeks of the 3-week project because he needed to know what voice to speak in, what their fears were, what their frustrations were, what their ambitions were, and then he could write the copy. So, before you guys dive in, make sure that we actually really do the research. We know what the things are that are keeping our clients up at night. We know what those fears are. We know what those frustrations are. We know what those wants are. We know what those aspirations are. So when we do it, we can have a lot more impact in doing so.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great thing to do, is just to ask your clients, what was your life like before you started working with me? What brought you to here? What got you interested in coaching? What were your expectations at the outset? How are things different now? And what, would you recommend me to somebody that Those are like the main questions you want to ask your clients when you're doing this kind of research at a very, basic level.
Yeah, you want to do that for your ideal clients as well, your amalgam, not the clients that you just got rid of, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Plague your world. No one client is ideal. You want to look at that small select few that serve your business well. You can serve them well. They pay well. All the attributes of your most positive client. That's where
exactly.
You haven't started already. Daniel, that's been fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time today. It's been an amazing insight into your world and to the psychology behind it. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniel.
I really appreciate y'all having me, guys. It was a great way to bookend my week. And so I will leave you guys with that. But thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun for me. And so I hope that you guys get another, mega dose of awesomeness with the next speaker.
Fantastic. Let's give him a little round of applause. Make sure you check out that incredible resource, guys. Reach out to Dan if you'd like some more help. Daniel, thanks for being such a scholar and a gentleman and just a man of incredible value. So thank you, mate. And definitely going to have you in for another follow-up.
Awesome. Well, the pleasure's been all mine. Godspeed to you all. Thanks so much.
Thanks, dude.